Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a wellness entrepreneur and a well-being coach from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, Rochelle Wolff. Rochelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Rochelle is a co-founder of Movebite, which is an early-stage startup on a mission to help people work and feel better through movement micro breaks that boost focus and enable sustainable performance throughout the workday. She's also a health and well-being coach. So, Rochelle, you've had a fascinating journey from a legal counsel to a wellness entrepreneur. Tell me about this dramatic career shift.
Yes, so I'm going to take you back to 2018. That's kind of when the what I call the aha moment started.
Mm-hmm.
It was around 8 to 10 years in my legal journey, and there was something missing, and I was constantly asking myself, what is it that was missing? And it was the moment, and I can really take you back to that moment when it was spring in Amsterdam, and I was biking to the office, working for Uber back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is missing that I miss in the fulfillment, and what do I really care about? And it was this literally on the summer day in the spring where I realized that I miss something doing with a purpose, something where I feel I can help people. And that was the first point that I realized that there's going to be something else that's not legal oriented in my kind of professional career.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what were some defining moments in your legal career that made you reflect on personal well-being?
Well, for that also, that is a very interesting thing where what I could even take you back to when I was still studying. So when I was still studying, I had a job which was at a gym,
Mm-hmm.
which was the first time that I really got the exposure to what it means to help people and to see people do something for themselves. And that was when I decided, okay, that was the first thing when I thought, hey, this is very interesting. And I think across my career, this was something that was constantly coming back to me. Myself, I enjoy movement. I enjoy what movement can bring for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was one of the things where it really started.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how did your experiences at high growth companies like Uber and Navan shape your understanding of burnout and sustainable performance?
I think it's a combination of what I've seen with colleagues of mine, the way that high-paced companies work and
Mhm.
want to perform, but also my own experience, my own routine, my own behavior, where at some point you feel like and you notice that if you're gonna continue at this speed and way where you have to, yeah, where you are giving up things that are super important. That's kind of basically the foundation for us in terms of health. That's not a sustainable way to get healthy, to get old, I mean, in a healthy way.
Okay. So let's talk about Movebite then. Tell me about Movebite and what is the core mission of Movebite and how does it stand out in the wellness and technology space?
And so with Movebite, we are really looking into physical well-being, so movement within the workday and how we can help people move more, find their focus, so kind of getting that, avoiding the mental fatigue, but also understanding their energy levels.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are today and where we are starting. But we are really looking at a bigger spectrum of also how can you make sure that the ergonomics that need to be well, especially in remote environments, where as an employer, you of course
Mm-hmm.
do not know how the ergonomic situation of a person is. Are they working at their dining table? Are they working from their couch? Do
Mm-hmm.
they have the right setup? And also looking at a bigger ecosystem, like working with physiotherapists, working maybe with other with fitness providers, where you can really make sure that during the workday, people get more movement in that will help them with their focus, that will help them with better understanding their energy rhythms.
Okay. And would you describe for us what is a typical movement micro break that you have defined in Movebite?
Yeah, so we've worked with physiotherapists to see what are the, so first of all, we looked at what are the first, say, preventions that we can look at. So we know that shoulder, the back, and the neck are the most common discomforts that people experience. So we created the desk movements in a way that they are easy to do behind your desk. You can do them while you're sitting, you can do them while you're standing, and you get them through the platforms in Slack and Microsoft Teams. And we've chosen for that so that it's in the workflow of the employee, so they don't have to go to another app. And they're always short. We use the science of micro breaks, where we look at 1 to 2 minutes. And the way it is it's connected with people's calendars, so they can actually do the micro movement when it's ready for them, and not when, for example, they are in a meeting.
And how do you approach the whole science of focus and posture when you design your micro breaks?
Yeah, so we looked at in our pilots about the way posture affects people. So imagine if you have a posture where you're constantly sitting, like there's not a lot of blood flow going on in your body. So there's more tension, and all this can take away from the focused work. So we're trying to bring the movement in to make people move, to give the body some blood flow going, more oxygen, but also to give them a break from sitting behind the screen. It then helps them with getting that creative thinking back, problem solving. And we always say, take the micro break with intention. So not scrolling and going on LinkedIn or on Instagram, but really taking an intention, move your body, whether that's going for a walk or an easy stretch. So that's how we are looking at it.
Fascinating. Movebite also combines movement, technology, and coaching. How do you balance these elements effectively? And give me an example if you can.
Yeah, so we see it as like a triangle, where movement is the last thing that we are doing. But in order for people to make them move, we need to change their behavior. And for that, we are using micro coaching. So where we work with behavioral scientists to make sure that we can actually help people getting to the action, which is movement. And for that, we're using the technology to hyper personalize it so that we understand what the employee wants. We understand how we can communicate this. So it's all the three elements are going all hand in hand. So they're not separate islands, but they're kind of a cohesive system.
And, just for my viewers and listeners, if, one of your clients is taking a micro break, is that linked to, as you said, their calendar, but it's also linked to their personal device, which is recording it? And is that giving feedback to you on, are there any red flags coming up?
So the way, the person can take the micro break, and then in the system they can say yes or no. We also use elements from gamification to provide some feedback to the employee. At the end of the week, they will get their overview of the numbers of micro breaks they took, where they stand on the leaderboard, if they want to be part of the leaderboard, because we know that that's an important element. And when we've done our pilot last year, in the first pilot we didn't have it, and one of the first questions that we got back from the employees that were piloting with us was, can we get something like a streak or a leaderboard? So that, and even though there we are now looking at to personalize that, because not everybody likes to be on a leaderboard, but then we know that there are people that excel to be on a leaderboard. So that's that's
okay. And are companies beginning to shift their perception of well-being from perquisites to strategy?
Yes. Yes, definitely see a shift going on
Mhm.
where these are not like standalone perks, but it's really thought through. Okay, like how can we design a well-being program or
Mhm.
create one that listens to the different needs of our employees.
Mhm.
And of course, I also still speak with the companies that see it as kind of
Yeah.
separate interventions or perks. But I definitely see a switch where it's been more thought of as it's a strategic, so it needs to be part of a culture, a company's culture. And
Mhm.
over the last few months, I've spoken with scale ups that in the tech scene that
Mhm.
have hyper growth when it comes to one kind of the employee base, but then also
Right.
in terms of performance. And you definitely see that they're already thinking about this from the start and that they really want to make sure that this is part of it. And that's, I think, a very interesting shift with
Mhm.
as opposed to a few years ago.
Mhm. Fascinating. One more question relating to Movebite, and then I'll come to your second avatar as a health and well-being coach. Rochelle, what role does leadership buy-in play in integrating movement breaks into company culture?
Yeah, that's a very important one, and also I think one that basically cannot be overseen because the moment a company decides to work with us, or even I think any other thing that's related to physical well-being or even to mental well-being, right? If you think
Mm.
about providing um, something like a mental health app, I think the leadership is one of the most important things to make this a success from an example point of view, from the way that the leader will
Mm.
example what they are doing, talking about this. And we know from studies that in companies where the leaders talk about this, whether this is in an all hands
Mm.
meeting, um, whether it is in a team meeting, providing the space for people so that they
Mhm.
know that it's okay. That's of course super important. And I think you can even go as far as maybe making it part of a performance review almost, where you can as an HR department can have a conversation if you see that these movement micro breaks are taken less by a certain department,
Mm.
just to have a conversation about why and what is it that it's not that it's lacking there.
Mm. Well said. Let's now talk about your other area of expertise, which is as a health and well-being coach. As a certified personal trainer and lifestyle coach, how do you define sustainable performance?
Yeah, sustainable performance. The way I look at it, and this is a bit of my definition, is that you, as an individual, you find a way for yourself where you can perform, but
Hmm.
also sustain and listen to your needs.
Hmm.
And a way I always like to explain it is that there are moments in time when you will, you might have less sleep, or there might be days where you need to work a bit longer. We all have those. Like for example, right now we are in a program here in Germany. I know that the days are longer, that there's more effort that I need to provide. But
Hmm.
for me, finding the ways that I know that I can kind of recharge myself, give
Right.
myself also permission. So that's one of the ways I look at it. So I think it really starts with understanding your needs and then also honoring those so that you
Hmm.
can keep performing in a way that suits you. So it's very much finding a way. And in my coaching, that's how I work with my clients to find the ways because what worked for me, what might work for you, might not work for others. So it's
Absolutely.
the
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely. And what myths around workplace well-being do you often encounter, and how do you handle these myths?
Well, I think my favorite one probably is, but we're having a mental health week,
Hmm.
um, or we do the mental health month,
Okay.
which I always provide credit and I say that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing, but that's a
Mm.
week or a month in a
Mm.
whole year.
Mm.
And I am of the opinion, and I mean, if you look at the science that a lot of great people are doing when it comes to
Mm,
workplace well-being, it's part of a culture. It's
mm,
part of something that we should do
mm.
every day.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first one. That's probably with a big one on the first place. And I think the second one is work-life balance.
Mm,
When companies talk about, sometimes you still see this in when they have a job ad out on LinkedIn, for
yeah.
example. We have good work-life balance, but I think these days when you look at remote hybrid companies and most companies um, are in that space, a work-life balance, I think, and especially if you work globally across different time zones,
Mm,
I don't, and all the technology that's out there, I think work-life balance doesn't exist anymore.
correct. I agree. And how important is posture? How does it affect productivity and mental well-being?
Yeah, so posture, if I talk about posture, I always see people think about, oh yeah, but that's like sitting up straight, standing upright. Yes, that's the first one,
Correct.
and that's indeed how we perceive it, right? But posture is more than only looking good and standing up straight. It has to do with bad posture, so the slouch position. Um, Starts with tension in the body,
Mm,
which then can lead into discomfort,
mm,
injuries, pain, and with that, also having less productivity. Imagine that you are constantly feeling the tension in your lower back or in your shoulders. That will not help you being super productive. It will not help you being able to focus. So I
mm,
think that's a very important one for people to understand. And I think if it's this nagging annoyance that's there
mm,
and you don't give it the attention, because usually it's a signal, it can lead in the end to an injury or something that is actually will cause
mm,
harm to your health.
mm,
So I think that is very important. And there's also research out there that knows that if you are sitting up straight,
mhm,
giving yourself some movement, this will also help you with, I said this earlier already,
mm.
the blood flow, the oxygen
Yeah,
that then also flows to your brain. So there are a lot of reasons why posture is important
correct.
beyond the it looks good, which is of
Correct.
course also super
Correct.
important.
Absolutely. I agree. Few more questions. How can people build a relationship with their bodies while working in demanding jobs?
Yes. So that's a really good question, and
Mm,
I think I don't have like a clear answer for this, because this is something that with my clients we always also work towards to kind of find that, and again it starts with the awareness and
mm,
understanding how it works. The way I do this with my clients, I always tell them find a ritual, and I use the habit stacking method that I always give them as an example, where the one thing that you do every day in your workday, whether that is the first cup of coffee you drink when you start working, or the
mm,
cup of tea, or the wrap up of the day,
mm,
take a moment to just check in with yourself. And this can be 30 seconds, it can be a 5 minute if you might want to journal about this, and see how your body feels and see how your energy was over the day. And also, how do you feel kind of emotionally? So that's always kind of the recipe that
mhm.
I provide. And this is also something that we've built in our app, what we call kind
Right.
of the end of day journal for people to get that moment of
Mm,
reflection.
mm, mm. Amazing. Rochelle, I have time for two more questions. Have you observed any cultural or generational differences in how people approach workplace wellness?
Yes, I think cultural is definitely an challenge for international companies, and I think it's very hard if you have a well-being department. Let's take Amsterdam as an example, but you work across regions, across cultures. So it really, in my opinion, it's very important that you have different stakeholders within different departments across the globe, because there is a lot of cultural differences, celebrations that are taken to be part of. And I think when it comes to generations, yes, there's quite a big difference between, if we can say it in the popular terms, between the baby boomers and the Gen Zs, how they are taking well-being really serious, and as opposed to other generations that see it more as something that they would do outside of work.
Correct. Well said. And my last question for you, if you could give one piece of advice to our viewers and listeners about integrating movement into a busy schedule, what would it be?
Don't overcomplicate it. I think that would be my first advice. It doesn't have to be, if you are busy, a 20-minute walk. It would be amazing if you have it, but maybe even a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk after lunch could already do a lot for the health, but also for the mind. And look at your calendar. Do you have back-to-back meetings? It can be as simple as having that 5-minute window between meetings to give yourself a bit of a break. So don't overcomplicate it. Start small.
Amazing. And on that note, don't overcomplicate it and start small. Thank you, Rochelle, for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. I always thought lawyers had very, very busy careers because they were running from one courtroom to the other. But obviously, that workplace movement is not something which you were planning on. Thank you for talking to me about Movebite, and thank you for such amazing tips on health and well-being. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.